the Always Sunny in Sayreville League was a bloodbath. Lots of injuries, which reminds me that I didn't do the Week 1 injury segment, one of my favorite segments of the week. So we'll get to that in a second. First, let's check out some of the action in the Always Sunny in Sayreville League. The closest game of the week actually had a little bit of drama to it. Rusty Strombone narrowly defeated the Dennis system by a score of 116.3 to 110.1. This was a 6.2 point margin of victory, like I said, the closest of the week. Rusty Strombone actually trailed this game going into Monday Night Football, got just enough out of Jeremy Langford to secure the win, bringing his team to 2-0 and sending the Dennis system to 0-2. Speaking of 2-0 teams, the Golden Showers beat Shower Hug this week, 127.1 to 107.1, and Devontae's Inferno defeated Team Blumpkin 120.1 to 99.3. These two winning teams move on to 2-0 and are two of just 3 teams remaining in the league that are undefeated. Everybody else in the league has at least one loss. And the 3 remaining teams that are undefeated are all in the number 2's division. Okay, so before we get to this week's Hero and Goat, we got to talk about something that's very important that I forgot to mention last week, but it needs to be talked about, and it's the injuries. So last week I forgot to mention that there was a couple of guys who were injured and either are completely dead or mostly dead for a significant amount of the season. Guys like Keenan Allen, for example, who tore his ACL in week 1, or RG3, or Tony Romo, or Gronk, who didn't even play in week 1 because of an injury he sustained like shortly before week 1 started, or Arian Foster, which surprised no one, or Zach Ertz. All these guys went down with injury after 1 week, after 1 game. Some of them didn't even make it through the whole game. Most of them didn't make it through the whole game. All dead, at least for a significant amount of time. Keenan Allen's not coming back. Romo might be back, later on down the line. RG3 is not coming back, but who wants him back? Ertz is coming back, and Foster is supposed to be coming back, but he's just going to get injured again. So, okay, fast forward to this week, week 2, aka the Apocalypse, where everybody got injured. Talking about Danny Woodhead down for the season. Talking about Dante Moncrief, 4 to 6 weeks, shoulder blade. AP is the knee. Abdul is the foot. Jonathan Stewart and Doug Martin, I believe, are hamstrings. Thomas Rawls suffered some sort of lower body injury. Brendan Marshall suffered a knee injury, which he's saying isn't all that bad, but it looked really bad if you saw it on TV. Jay Cutler injured his hand. Josh McCown injured his shoulder. Jimmy Garoppolo injured his actual throwing shoulder. And just for good measure, just because Shower Hug didn't get enough of the injury bug in week 2, as of the recording of this, Corey Coleman just in practice, I guess today, broke his hand. So there you go. So anyway, lots of injuries through just 2 weeks of the season. I will do a better job of keeping up on the injuries as we go along. Statistically, they say that most of the major injuries occur during the beginning of the season. I mean, take that for what it's worth. But a couple of names have already been added to the tombstone. Forever, they will stay in our hearts, but they can get the fuck off my roster. Alright, now it's time for this week's hero. I don't know if you noticed this, but one of the teams in the league went completely nuclear this week. I don't know if you looked at the scoreboard. One of these things is not like the others. 195.9 points were scored this week by Toddler Fight Club in a complete beatdown, which we'll get more into as we go. But for right now, let's focus on the fact that this was not only the highest score of the week and the highest score of the year, but this was the 4th highest score in league history. It also bears noting that Albert now has 2 of the top 4 high scores in league history. Calm down. He also appears in the bottom 5. In this game, Cam Newton led all scores with a 33.8. Matt Forte kicked in a not too shabby 32.9, and the Denver defense went bonkers for 27 points. D'Angelo Williams kicked in 23.2, and Delaney Walker had 20.3 points, as 5 players on Toddler Fight Club's lineup scored at least 20 points. Nobody really crapped out except Steve Smith, but he's 100 years old and he's pretty much, a corpse running around out there. Everybody else showed up to play, and Toddler Fight Club escaped with a narrow 107-point victory. He started every point on his team, didn't leave anything on the bench in the most lopsided victory of the week, putting his name into the record books for a second time. Toddler Fight Club is this week's hero. Okay, so now it's time for this week's GOAT. A lot of times when there's a huge score in the league, the guy he plays against also has a huge score. Like so many times, oh man, if I played anybody else I would have won, but I played the guy who was the only guy who outscored me. This is not one of those situations. This is a situation where the bootleg crab leg fell completely flat on his face and then got stomped on and run over by the juggernaut that was Toddler Fight Club. Toddler Fight Club scored 195.9 points. Bootleg Crab Leg scored 88.1. That's a 107.8 point loss for the Bootleg Crab Leg this week. 107.8 points. The deficit that he lost by was greater than what some other teams scored this week. Obviously, this was the lowest score of the week, as Bootleg Crab Leg had 5 players scoring in single digits, headlined by fill-in Jameis Winston, who played oh so well in the first game, but only managed 4.6 points in the second game. The Bootleg Crab Leg was on the wrong end of a 100-plus point whipping, and he didn't even make it interesting. And for that, the Bootleg Crab Leg is this week's GOAT. Alright guys, key matchups. We have 3 matchups that we're going to be keeping our eye on in week 3. All headlined by 2-0 teams. The first of which is 2-0 Rusty Strombone taking on 1-1 Shower Hug. Now this is a number 2's division battle between a team that was ravaged by injury in week 2 and the Rusty Strombone. The next matchup we have our eye on is between the 2-0 Golden Showers and the 0-2 Rutherford B. Hazy. This is a classic underdog scenario where Rutherford B. Hazy could put the first black mark on the Golden Shower's perfect record. And the third and final key matchup we have to look at is 2-0 Devontae's Inferno taking on 1-1 Toddler Fight Club. Now, on one hand, you have 2-0 Devontae's Inferno cruising right along, and on the other side, you have Toddler Fight Club, who just had this explosion of points in week 2. How is the team going to follow it up in week 3? That's the question on everybody's mind. How do you follow up a performance like that? Toddler Fight Club is about to show us. Alright guys, that's it. Week 2 update over. Remember to set your lineups. Remember that the injury bug is always out there, and he can get you at any time. And I will see you next week, where it's always sunny.